Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Oil and Gas Technology Centre stand for this, our second Technology Leadership Q&A. This afternoon, we've got three panellists, so I'm delighted to welcome Greta Lydecker, MD of Europe for Chevron. She joined Chevron in 1982 as a geologist and has held numerous positions in the US and came across to Europe about a couple of years ago to run the business here. So welcome, Greta. Secondly, we've got the Chief Executive of the OGA, Andy Samuel, who joined the OGA at the beginning of its inception in 2015, having spent 20 years in BG, latterly as the MD of Europe and Norway. And finally, the Chief Executive of the OGTC, Colette Cohen, who has experience across the US and across the globe, working for BP and ConocoPhillips over 20 years, and joined the OGTC when it was set up earlier this year. So the format is I'll ask each of the panelists to say a couple of minutes of introduction. I'll then ask a few questions after that and then throw it open to the floor. But let me invite Colette to give just 2 minutes on the OGTC's mission and purpose.
Okay, so lovely to see somebody here. I'm really going to talk about the OGTC. It was originally opened in the 10th of February, but we're part of the Aberdeen City deal. So 180 million of funding from the UK and Scottish governments, which we're hoping to match fund with industry. And so when we first set up, we were given some clear goals by the Technology Leadership Board, which is really a subset of the OGA, with a lot of industry participation and industry-led. And they really focus on things like asset integrity, well construction, small pools, unlocking that potential, looking at digital and looking at decommissioning. So we've already got those activities in flight. And I'm delighted to sort of say we have already got 12.5 million of commitments in for projects. We have 8 field trials. We've got 21 projects ongoing. We're currently looking at about 100 new projects, which we hope to at least announce another 10 or 12 before the end of the year. And that's really working in partnership with industry, very focused initially in our early years on deployment and adopting technologies from other industries. So we also have, and I'll just throw it out there, we're going to launch the Innovation Hub, which is an area to bring people together and really explore technical challenges and problems on the 2nd of October.
Thank you very much. So Greta, how do we deliver this technology transformation and what are the key technologies we need to focus on?
Okay, so if I were to answer that question for Chevron, we would say technology is the key enabler to improving our business. So it's vital to us. We have a technology center here in Aberdeen. We've had it here for over a decade now in very close partnership with our business. So having that close tie between technology and the business needs is critical. I think the OGTC will do that for the broader industry here in the community. So that's a great enabler for us in Aberdeen. But if I were to pick a couple areas, I would say our technology is focused on improving our existing business. So for example, we want to improve asset integrity offshore. So we're trialing Permasense that we can go in and test asset integrity in a non-invasive way without having to shut in production. So that's a great way to help us improve existing business. But then the bigger focus of technology that we've seen in my career, very many just game-changing technology is what's going to help us find and develop new resource. So, for example, in my career, we probably couldn't have hit this tent with a drill bit when I first started working. Now we could run a drill bit right down through here and keep it within 10 feet, up or down, for thousands of meters. So technology like that is what we're focused on for new exploration.
Thank you very much. Andy, how do you see this technology transformation and what does the future look like?
Okay, well, thank you very much. I'm very excited actually by technology. I think we're at a tipping point, long awaited. But first of all, I'm delighted to be on the board of the Oil and Gas Technology Centre, and great credit to Colette and the team. It's amazing how much is happening in such a short period of time. Really brilliant. And the OGA is working very well with the OGTC as well. So we ran a recent technology showcase a couple of weeks ago. That was focused around the 30th licensing round, small pools. We got very good feedback. I know one provider's already hooked up with 7 operators, meetings on the calendar. So things are really starting to move. We discussed technology last week with the Energy Minister in the context of Vision 2035. There is no doubt in my mind that technology is going to be a huge part of Vision 2035. That's where we're going to get a lot of extra recovery, and it's where we're going to really achieve the total value add through the service sector. Now, I think Andrew wanted me to talk a little bit about the OGA role. I wear two hats, and our role as a regulator of technology. So the first thing is we've now got a lot of data that we never had before because we went out and got it through the new survey. We'll publish findings from those data in Q4. We've got very good insights for what operators are telling us are the ongoing challenges and opportunities where they want technology applied. That will obviously be very helpful for the Oil and Gas Technology Centre. The data also tell us that some operators are doing an absolutely brilliant job. Chevron are one of the top performers in that regard. They also tell us, though, that a lot of operators are what I would call in the race to be second, and some aren't even in the game. So we will be following up and encouraging people to get in the game. We've got technology plans from the operators, so we'll support them in going after those. If necessary, we can use powers, but I don't think we're going to need to, because I actually think the OGTC and the way forward, the opportunities, the value being created, is actually going to be a huge drive. So once again, very well done to the OGTC, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Andy. Colette, Andy talked about Vision 2035. What's your vision for technology on the UKCS? Can you describe how you think that looks over the next few years?
Yes. So actually, if you just look behind you, that's pretty much our vision, which ties in directly with Vision 2035. When we started in the oil and gas industry, or in the centre, I think we were given a lot of challenges that were much more around fix today. Things that, and I understand, because the industry was really suffering, the prices were down, and we were also facing a period that we believe was going to be lower for longer. So there is a need to fix today to make some of the cost improvements that the industry has delivered for themselves sustainable. So we need technology that really enables that, keeps it there, improves the assets we already have. But if we're going to unlock the future, we're going to start, building on those, the sort of 30th round, the small pools, and really starting to digitize the future. That's the green box we've created, which really drives more towards maximizing recovery, changing the materials we use. But if you have a vision that goes beyond that, and you're saying, I want to get beyond the 11 billion barrels that we think we can recover, and I want to start attacking all the way to the 20 billion, you have to start thinking about a different way of developing. You have to start thinking about much lower cost, and you have to start thinking about also the kind of skills and talent that you're going to attract. And they're not going to be guys that are going to be offshore in the way we have it now. They're going to want to remote operate. They're going to be using different types of skills. So to do that, we need to develop technology today that we can test in a kind of safe environment that is our offshore environment. But for the future, that would allow us to be much more remote operated, reusable, carbon focused, just a change in the way we work. So that kind of captures the vision that we would have that would support 2035.
Thank you very much. Greta, can I ask you a bit about how we actually increase the appetite for field trials, for getting those technologies which are almost ready through that sort of commercialization phase? I know you're involved in a few at the moment. What are the key things from the operator perspective?
Wow, I would just say, again, from Chevron's perspective, it's a leadership initiative. I mean, it's something I asked for. It's something that we count on to drive our business. So it's an expectation that we're always trialing new technology. Now, you could say it's like that because we've seen the value over the years. And so we have fields that we would have probably abandoned and sold years ago if we hadn't been able to develop technology to improve the recovery from those existing fields. And, we're very excited about a field trial we have that's about to become more than a field trial of improving recovery here in the North Sea in Captain Field. But some of those trials have to take place in the field for the smaller things. Some of those game-changing trials, like one of the things I would like to see in my career is separation in the reservoir. Don't bring up everything, just bring up the product we want to sell. Wouldn't that be great? I mean, imagine how much less infrastructure we would have to put out there and how much easier it would be if all we brought up was the product we want to sell. So if anybody's got an idea on that, I'm interested, and that would be an awesome.
A lot of interest in that. I'll come to Andy and then I'll throw it open to the audience just for one last question from me here. How much of this is behavioural mindset and shifting the way we think about the future versus practical deployable technology? Is it a combination of both?
I think most of it is behavioural at the moment. There are already a load of very good technologies that people should and could deploy, but for various reasons they're not. We talked in the early days as we were setting up the OGTC that we all need to be psychologists and actually really work out how we could get everyone to lead in the way that a few are.
Makes sense. Questions from the floor based on those opening comments. Anyone got something? Okay, Carl.
Carl from Digital Energy Journals. For Greta, you said something I really liked at last conference. We want to see what problem we're trying to solve. Because you often get a sense people think technology is an end in itself, where maybe all technology is solving a problem or doing something better. Do you have any thoughts on how we can keep better orientated on solving problems or improving things rather than getting too bogged down in technology itself?
Yeah, absolutely. I think definitely integrating people who are dealing with today's issues and facing tomorrow's challenges is critical, and mixing the right blend of people. So, you know, we come across things as a team. You know, it's especially in the digital. I guess that's a really critical one, because you need somebody who, say, knows the problems, the business side of it, but you also need somebody really, really good at math. And you also need somebody really, really good at understanding your IT systems and how you can bring all that together. It's a rarity when you find that in one person. Usually you need to bring people together for that. So to me, it's I hope that makes sense to you.
Yeah, and I think Colette mentioned the Innovation Hub earlier. That's the idea of that space, is to bring different teams of people together, inside the industry, outside.
But I think it's more making sure that whatever technology you're developing is targeted at a true problem. But we also recognize that there's a whole lot of investment that's been done in other industries where there are really, exceptional either materials or products that we haven't considered how they could apply to our industry. So hence they might solve a problem that isn't necessarily a problem in that it works, but it could be cheaper, it could be faster, it could be have a greater longevity. There could be other ways that we could improve our overall performance as an industry if we just embraced somebody else's technology. And so the Innovation Hub is about doing that as well. And a little bit going to Greta's comments, one of the things we'd like to see is bringing people in that are not the ones who normally address our problems. Because if you constantly ask an asset integrity engineer to look at an asset integrity problem, you will get a very traditional asset integrity answer. If you give that to a plumber or to an architect, you will get a different answer. And we just need to challenge ourselves in that way. And we've got great examples. And actually Kinetic, if you go across and visit them, they've got a super example of where the latest in radar technology came from a zoologist. So, just being willing to listen to other people's challenges and deploy your technology in a different way can be really very enabling and help costs.
Makes sense. Andy, anything to add on that? Okay. Any other questions from around the room? Okay, Mark.
Hi, Andy. You mentioned the survey. I know it's not published yet, but you said you've got some insight on the areas that people want to see new technology deployed. Can you give us a bit more insight on what some of those might be?
Yeah, it's kind of broken down into the kind of usual suspects: subsurface, field solutions, asset integrity, but it's actually very granular. So, for example, in subsurface, what exactly is the next wave of seismic technology that people are looking to get? What are the characteristics? So I think it's going to be really invaluable. As soon as we can, I think we'll share it with the OGTC even before we publish it. No huge surprises, but it kind of goes to the question about making sure that it's demand-led. I think through the TLB, through the OGTC, there's very, very strong operator and service company involvement. So it's not just a science project, it's solving real problems.
Thank you. Greta, can I ask a little bit more about the Chevron Technology Centre and how you approach that, what the setup is and how you look at things?
Okay, we have 3 around the globe. One's here in Aberdeen, one's in Perth, Australia, and the other is in America, in California. And so we're very closely aligned. People at the Technology Center are very much aware of our business. We're very closely aligned. I would say the center here in Aberdeen does provide support for many other locations, like Kazakhstan or Africa, as well as North Sea. But having that close integration, I mean, the folks in the Technology Center are working with us day to day on our projects. They know our problems. They're helping us bring the insights together. So that's why we work together. Very closely located.
Makes sense. Thank you. Any other questions from around the room? Okay. Go for it.
This is really for you, Greta. First of all, a very interesting new technology centre. I'd like to talk to you more about that if I could after, yeah? And secondly, if we offered you a technology that would pay for itself in 2 hours flat of DSV time for asset integrity, would you be interested in speaking to me about that?
Of course.
Thank you.
I think Colette might be as well, actually. So, Colette, you said you've got a number of projects, about 21, I think, ongoing at the moment. Can you say a little more about their focus and what they're really trying to tackle?
Because of the level of maturity of the ideas, so the themes that we were given from the Technology Leadership Board, our projects currently focus more in asset integrity, well construction, and small pools. We're still more at a scoping level in decommissioning and digital. So the 21 projects are spread across that. But they cover a gamut, everything from the next generation of well construction, improving time on location in sort of looking at subsea drilling, all the way through to the next generation of P&A and how could we transform P&A operations. So in the wells, it is, our total aim is to take about 50% of the costs out of operations, whether it's in building it or in killing it, in abandoning it. So they're the sort of projects we're looking at. In asset integrity, it's a little more interesting in some ways because there's a huge amount of technology already out there in asset integrity that just hasn't been adopted by the industry. So our early focus is on a lot of field trials. It's on either proving a technology works. So industry in particular, if you're looking at non-intrusive in technology for asset integrity, how do you show that, it's as good as your intrusive? So this year, working with Chevron and Total, we have been looking at technologies where there was a plan to go into vessels. So in advance of doing that, we're using the non-intrusive, and then we're going to compare that to the intrusive data so that you have a decent amount of information that you can share across the industry to say whether these technologies work or not. So it's trying to make a difference, because what we'd like to do in asset integrity is pretty much eliminate having intervention or shutdowns related to asset integrity, unless you have to go in. So that will make a massive difference to our turnaround times. And then small pools, ECOG launched yesterday, actually, their power hub. And we've been working with them on developing a power hub that we can use to help stranded resources on single wells, subsea wells.
Yes, some really interesting stuff going on. Any other questions around the room at this point? Okay, Paul. Talking in the background.
Sorry, it's the best acoustics. Question on knowledge management. I've been speaking to some of the companies here who are exhibiting, who I would say have gone beyond digitization to almost digital. And they're saying they're drowning in data. So big data is a benefit, but how are we going to tame the beast and actually work on learning lessons, knowledge management, etc.?
Yeah, I'm going to start on that and then pass it on, but because it hits one of my hot buttons. Digitization and big data are not the same thing, and big data is not about gathering tons of data. We already do that. If you want to interpret big data in this way, it is about the analytics. It's turning your data into actionable decision information. That's what we don't do right now. We are one of the largest gatherers of data as an industry, and we are one of the poorest users of data. In fact, if you think of, even in our asset integrity world, how many anomalies we all register every year, and yet we never go back and look at them until there's an incident and go, yes, I do remember that one. Whereas in the future, what you would have is that data going automatically into a system, not only being recognized for the area it's in, but being able to look holistically across the whole process, then give it a red light, green light, whatever, and you'd be able to use that data instantaneously, not in 6 months, not in a year, but now. That's what really digitization is, and that's the sort of the journey that we want to bring us on.
Excellent. Andy, I know data and information has been quite a big focus for the OGA over the past 18 months. What would you like to add to that in terms of the regulatory perspective?
So I think generally we're in a catch-up phase. We've neglected this area over the last couple of decades, so we really need to kind of accelerate, and the OGTC is a large part of that. The OGA, we're putting a lot more out there. In my mind, let's catch up with the Norwegians and go further. On the analytics, I was looking at some work that came out of Norway, I think with Accenture, that broke down the opportunity in analytics quite systematically, quite discreetly. You could really get your head around how it could be applied very quickly in a very sensible way. So I think we're going to get there quite quickly.
Excellent. Greta, have you cracked this data challenge? What are your experiences from inside a big operator?
I don't know if we've cracked it, but I certainly can highlight some examples of where we've made use of our data to make real-time decision-making happen like that. From my last assignment, we had 10,000 wells in the field, and they produced a lot of water along with the oil. And we were able to, in this declining environment, it's not a very happy sounding example, but in this declining environment, we were able to understand how much it costs to keep a well on. Could it pay for its lifting of its water? And if it couldn't, we shut it in because we don't want to lose money. And so we worked with all of our data and applying the right math, right algorithm, able to do that real time. So being able to do that and have all the automation to shut it off from one integrated operations center, not have to send people out in the field to do it, that was fantastic. Now, we also had the ability to put them back on when price increased, and we had that all worked in. So having the data, what do you want to do with it, and then knowing how to manage it to help you make decisions faster and be proactive, like Colette was saying, to me is fantastic. It's like the stores that know that you've come and bought these things, and you probably are going to be wanting to buy more. Or they can tell, because of what you're buying, if you're about to have a child or you just got married, and suddenly you're getting all this information about things you didn't know you needed, but you're going to go buy it.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what we need to do.
Very good, thank you. Any other questions from around the room? In which case, I'll come to Andy, because I know we've had quite a change in regulation over the past 2.5 years. OGA is now a government company, separate from government, but we've also had a change of energy minister recently, and you spent some time with these guys last week. How big a factor was technology in those discussions, and what's their view of the future?
It was a big part of the conversation, and Colette was along there. I'd say, speaking for the new energy minister, he's got a strong business background. He was very interested. He was intrigued by this word collaboration and why companies that compete would want to collaborate. Yep. And we gave many examples. The North Sea assets are very interconnected, need to do things differently, but also technology, we need to collaborate. And I think by the end, he was really very supportive. Definitely next trip, he wants to go and visit the OGTC. Yep. I'd say the same for the Treasury Minister, yep. Connected well. So government's right behind this. I think as we look to the industrial strategy and the sector deal, I think 180 million is a great starting point. But actually, for the scale of the ambition to achieve that vision, it is a starting point. And actually, when we look at oil and gas compared to other industries, we haven't really been punching where we need to be in terms of funding. So I think it's a really good start, and it's going to get better.
Excellent. I know technology is very much part of the industrial strategy and the work being done on a sector deal. If I can come to Colette now and maybe just paint that picture of the future for us. How does this look sort of 20 years on, 30 years on? What will we see out there on the UKCS? What will the industry look like?
Okay, now in fairness, nobody can answer that question. And if I did, I'd probably be buying stocks and shares rather than sitting here. So I'll paint you a vision of what I would like it to look like. And I think I'd like to see the existing facilities that have that potential still in production, but in a very efficient way. I personally would like to see the overall infrastructure of the North Sea cleaned up. I'd like us to get after aggressively decommissioning what we don't need because it costs too much, get it out of the way, put in new sort of infrastructure highways that allow us to connect all of these small pools and the next generation. I'd like to see a big focus on all next generation being either unmanned or subsea, and having really high-tech, high-value jobs onshore where we're running those operations. We're doing, all of it through remote operations, automation, and I think then being able to, instead of wondering if we could, develop that small pool that's 5 billion barrels, you absolutely, or 1 million barrels, you absolutely can. And you know how, you have the technology, you can do it quickly. Yep. There's a smooth regulation system, there's a smooth way, and we also are simultaneously decommissioning as we produce, so that we're sort of an industry that covers from cradle to grave at the same time, and there's a momentum with that, and we're sharing our supply chain, co-location with renewables where appropriate, so it's gas to grid where required. So I think it's a very different vision of the future that I think could be really attractive to the young, and as well as that could be showing us as a part of the low carbon economy, sitting at the table with the nuclear, with the renewables, and being part of a future of the UK, not something that's going to die in sort of 20 years.
Thank you. Greta, Colette mentioned there the attraction of the next generation of workforce into the industry. Some of the jobs we'll be doing over that time frame don't exist yet. How do companies like Chevron go around positioning the opportunity for graduates or incomers to the industry?
Well, we have a significant number of universities that we have a partnership with, and we work with those universities to help shape the curriculum. I mean, when I go down and visit with, we have a number of students we've given scholarships to down at University of Aberdeen. When I go down and meet with those students, I encourage them all to take more math, because the world's a changing world. You know, math, you just can't have too much math. And so, again, continuing to work with the faculty, the students, shaping the curriculum, I think that's the best thing we can do. And continuing to support students with scholarship is another best thing we can do, and give them real opportunities to see what our business is like through an internship or a summer program, or go down and we have sort of a simulation type exercise for the students to get them a taste of what working in our business is like, so they see it is very exciting, it is very technology focused. It's not some old dinosaur. It's an exciting place to be.
Thank you very much. Oh, question from Carl again.
Andy, so we had this vision of the future. I was hoping there'd be lots of carbon capture and storage in 20 years. Do you have any thoughts on where the government is now, which you're able to share, or probably not, I guess?
So we have a small role in carbon capture and storage with the licensing and permitting of the offshore bit. But we do work with some of the developers, and quite encouraged by some of their thinking. I think where they need to help government is by putting together a clear kind of commercial model with assumptions, with what support they need, but how that's going to grow into a sustainable business that actually doesn't require subsidy forever. And actually, carbon price, just a more strategic approach. They are, and which they are now doing, because. And I think actually starting a bit smaller, so things like the Acorn project, to me seems like quite a sensible way to start. But I cannot speak for BAYS. We're independent from government.
Okay, thank you. We're going to go to Nigel from GA Drilling.
Thanks, Andrew. Lots of innovators here today. Thank you for inviting us along. And we all come across a similar challenge speaking to them today. And that's the trying to break through the fast follow or race to be second barrier. So while the three of you are here, really appreciate your advice on what the innovators can do to overcome that.
Well, so I'm going to selfishly say that's one of the reasons the OGTC exists. I mean, I think the industries recognize that is a problem, not just for drilling, but maybe even more so for drilling, because there's a higher risk element in in deploying new technology in drilling operations. But we get it across the gamut. It doesn't matter whether it's a national integrity technology. Every technology hits a challenge in being deployed in the field. So the Oil and Gas Technology Centre allows us to help de-risk it, helps on cost, helps bring operators together and create the right contracts to put them in place. So that's why we've already got 8 field trials. But the ones that I'm most excited about are in the next, we've already approved 2 additional wells field trials coming up in the next 6 months. And I'm hoping that next year we've got even more. And I think that's just letting operators have a safe environment to come together, share results, work with the OGA and the HSE, so they've kind of got that tacit approval of what they're trying to achieve as well, and recognizing that they are trying something new. So you kind of need a safe haven to create that, and the OGTC brings that. I mean, I recognize there's probably other ways, but I definitely have seen more field trials happening since we turned up than I've seen before, and I think that we definitely help.
Andy, how do we shake off this fast follower?
Okay, so 3 things from our perspective. First of all, fully agree with Colette. Things are very different this year to the last couple of years. Absolutely seeing way more technology being trialed. There's nothing like 180 million to actually kind of loosen get people excited. For new licenses, so as part of the 30th licensing round, we're putting technology up front into the scoring system. So that, and we've been very clear, we want people to come with technology solutions, and we will bias our awards in that direction fairly through the scoring. What I say to all SMEs though is if you know something's really going to work, and somehow if you could prove it, come and talk to us, because we can then look which operators ought to be using it. And as we launch supply chain action plans, which is the final bit of our regulatory toolkit, which is coming out next quarter, there will be a requirement on operators and for projects over 25 million tier 1 suppliers to actually demonstrate that they have gone out and worked in partnership with the relevant parts of the supply chain to maximize value. So if we're aware of technologies that actually are maximizing value that are being ignored, we can then have interesting conversations with operators. We'll look at their technology plan. If it's not good enough, we'll have robust conversations. Ultimately, if we have to, and I hope we don't, we could actually impose a Mo UK plan. But like I say, I'm hoping that the carrot of the value that will be created, the match funding, should be more than enough to finally unlock this. But I know there's a lot of cynics, and I know it's a big conversation.
Greta, so it's all about the value then, demonstrating the business case. Is that how you see it?
Well, business case is critical, but again, I'll come back to, we don't really think of technology as a cost. We think of it as an enabler. So that's our mindset. We don't think of it as an expenditure. It's more of an investment, an enabler. And so when I think people have that kind of mindset, you have a different approach. You're actively seeking technology to help you because you know it is such an enabler. So I'm probably not the right person to ask about being a fast or a follower, but
okay, so I'm going to give everyone one last chance to ask a question before I ask the panelists to wrap up. And the question I'm going to ask them, starting with Colette, is what's your one message on technology transformation going forward? Any final questions? In which case, what's your one message on delivering technology transformation?
I'm going to keep it quite simple and just say that I think it's very challenging for industry to do it on their own, and that if they could just partner both together, with the innovators and each other, and if they need a safe haven to enable that, the OGTC is there to do that for them.
Thank you. Andy?
I'm very encouraged. It's already changing. As you get successes, let us know, and we'll keep positively reinforcing them. It's time to look to the future.
I'll just echo the value of partnership. We couldn't do what we do without our business partners helping us to develop new technology. And the last thing I'd say is don't be afraid to fail, but fail fast and learn and move on.
Thank you very much, our panelists.